Hello, welcome again here in the Motorenhalle. My name is Denise Ackermann and I'm together with Till Ansgar Baumhauer. Normally we would have an exhibition which has the name
disCONNECTED.
But actually the exhibition is still not present because of Corona, what we have all over the world, the same situation. And normally we had artists from all over the world which could not travel to Dresden. So we are now here with this series about the art, about some stories behind the art and with the artist as well.
So you see, we are indeed disconnected in every aspect of the word, but we try to connect to you and to connect you to the exhibition, to come up, to make you curious, to be here when we are going to open the show, probably in the end of October of this year.
Yeah, so let's cross the fingers that we can do it actually in the end of October this year. So, yes, today the show, this little series name is Transcultural Translation. Maybe Till, you can first give us an introduction what you mean with transcultural translation in this concept of the exhibition and how it fits with the whole topic of disCONNECTED.
Exactly. Well, disCONNECTED has the main topic of images, of artifacts, of ideas crossing cultural borderlines and becoming sometimes something different, sometimes staying the same, sometimes being misunderstood, sometimes being understood. And we, tried to find some different aspects which we can follow in the exhibition to help people to understand facets of the topic. And transcultural translation, as we called it, deals mainly with language, with images of language and with functions of language, and with the question what happens when language material crosses borders as well. And we have two artists today about that we will talk. One is Thomas Baumhekel from Dresden, and one is Ricardo Coello Gilbert from Ecuador, with whom we will also be in a direct dialogue.
Yeah, misunderstanding or understanding is, I think, a very, very common issue. We all know this in a way. Well, when we look behind you, Till, maybe a lot of people will not understand, maybe not misunderstanding, first not understanding. But you maybe can first say what we can maybe read, or some maybe can read. I can't read it. What we can read.
Well, I have to help myself as well with my glasses and a sheet of paper, because also I cannot read the text, which is Japanese. And it comes from a series of works which is called, which is called a Basic Course of Modern Japanese Language, coming from a book or referring to a book which was published in the late GDR times. And Thomas Baumhekel, the artist, started to work with Chinese calligraphy already more than 20 years ago. And after some time, he also focused on Japanese language. And what is quite interesting is that he uses German text material, usually in this case teaching material, to bring it into Japanese calligraphy in his own style, which is the style of someone who cannot read Japanese in general and who does not speak Japanese, but who approaches it from a visual level. And indeed, this calligraphy, which he calls broken wood calligraphy, is also something which is really appreciated in Japan, interestingly.
So, and if we could read these characters, what we would read.
Well, we would read the sentence which is in German: Es macht doch wohl keinen Spaß, die Sommerferien am Meer zu verbringen, wenn man nicht schwimmen kann. So it probably doesn't make fun to spend your summer holidays at the sea if you cannot swim. And
yeah, maybe before we go further, maybe we should give a little attention to also to this book, because I also read a little bit about this book, because it was in the late time of GDR that it exists for persons who want to learn Japanese actually. And before, so I read that there was a kind of copies only existing in, I don't know how it's called in English, but it was a special machine called Organic, and they had like brown paper copies, and just with these papers people could learn Japanese. And after they finally, because in GDR they had not so many papers and stuff, then they could produce this teaching book, and it's really in the late of GDR time that it was published, at least. And I think it's very interesting. And as I wrote, Thomas found this book, and this is his way also to come to this that he find this way to make art actually.
Yeah, in fact, he got the book from his father short time after the reunion of the two German countries, and he put it aside for quite a long time until he stepped into Japanese as a part of his work, and then he started to be involved in the book. And for him it has several levels, because he finds a lot of memories, also cliches about GDR society in this book. And he always reflects, when he's working, these levels of cultural backgrounds and of political interests in it. So just to hold it up for a moment, he is also working with image material like this one, which is a photograph of Emperor Hirohito meeting the General Secretary Erich Honecker in a party organized by the GDR in Japan, probably with roses imported from the GDR. So Thomas is really interested on one side in this gap between two cultures, in the interests of the two cultures to come together, and sometimes even in the impossibility to reach each other.
Yes, and actually, so when we talk about cultural translation, this is not only a book to learn the language, it's also a kind of artifact or a subject which shows also the political situation at that time, what you can find also in this book. So, and transcultural translation is not only take one word, put in the other word in another language. So we also have something more what is transmissioned by a translation. So, and I think it's also something interesting for Baumhekel.
Exactly. Well, it happens in several ways in the same time when he's working. He told me yesterday when I went to his studio to grab the calligraphy to bring it here, that the meaning of the sentence strongly influences his artistic approach to the calligraphy as well. And now I think I should step towards the work, because he showed me some special aspects which I find really interesting. On one side he said, you have to know that the Japanese practice of writing sentences as calligraphy is very different from the European idea of composing an artwork. So in Japan you start in the corner and you write the sentence in one rhythm and you finish, and you don't change anything afterwards. So the space left behind in the corner is in fact the space left behind after finishing the writing process. And it always makes a difference how you go into the process of writing. So he said, well, if I deal with the sea and with swimming, then I will prepare the material, the ink, in a way that it becomes liquid like the water I am moving in. If you would approach the work very closely, then you would see that it's a very grayish ink because there's a lot of water in it and you see the traces of bubbles, etc. So this is the first aspect of the materiality. And then he says, writing that sentence is like swimming in the open sea. So the sheet of paper is just a fragment of the unlimited cosmos of the sea, and he's moving inside that. And so his movement in the structure, in the open structure of the paper, is like the process of jumping into the water with the splashes coming out, and then swimming. Maybe, oh, sorry. Maybe you can also interpret that energy is going to fade and coming back until the end. So it's a mixture of text, of memory, of GDR aspects, because he told me, well, if you talk about the sea, going to the seashore, it's always the Baltic Sea. So in this context, everyone has the same memories, or at least everyone coming from former GDR, and it is something which is not written in the text, but which is common. So these points come together with the process and with the approach to the visual material. And he also told me yesterday, well, when I checked my works to decide which one I would give to you to show it today, then I suddenly realized that there was a writing mistake in the work. And I asked him, well, what do you feel about it? Because we live in a globalized time right now. And he's also working with Google Translate, for example. So you have those digital processes of translating which are full of faults always, which improve themselves, but faults just happen. And he said, yeah, it's interesting because it's about this sign. This sign is combined of a human figure and a tree. And if you have a human figure and a tree with a trunk just going down, then it's relax. Maybe the man in the woods, the peace of the woods. But if the tree has some roots additionally, then it's the meaning of body. So just a small difference in the pictogram makes a really big difference in the meaning. And this is a really interesting shift because it's something we would never notice, but every Japanese would notice at once. And I think it's a point where the whole problematic of transcultural dialogue and translation becomes visible.
Yeah, absolutely, because even we know it maybe in German, some English words come in our language like public viewing, what we have a completely different understanding here, and so maybe it's comparable how even when words transformed, characters transform, that there can be misunderstandings go slowly inside and then it transforms itself.
Well, in Corona times we have the term home office in Germany, which in Germany means that you work in your home, but in English it's completely different. So you see that there's already a big shift, if not a mistake, in everyday's language. And so it happens here as well.
Do you know if Thomas speaks Japanese, or how he is related now with his language? How he's related maybe with artists, professors, teachers from Japan?
Well, I know that he is in contact with Japanese calligraphers as well. He's quite well known in Japan for his work, but he does not speak Japanese. And I think he also does not read fluently Japanese, but he told me that he knows some important words which he has been working with for a lot of times. So that's also why he made this mistake, because he said, well, I use the word body so often in my calligraphy that I just use it here as well, although it was a different sign.
It was more like a writing mistake.
Exactly, exactly.
So, but with this writing mistake, it now a complete other, not complete, but a different meaning goes into this.
Exactly, yeah.
So, maybe you would like to sit next to me. I just want to that you feel comfortable. Well, do you have some other interesting things what Thomas maybe told you, maybe some interesting reactions in Japanese? Because I read that he also make exhibition there, how people react on his work. You say he like him, he like his calligraphy stuff, he's popular for that.
Well, I did not ask him exactly about that, but I know that he is invited to take part in calligraphy exhibitions which refer to Japanese traditions usually, and so he's one of the few from outside Japan who is asked to be there as well.
And I mean, for him, it came in a way, like we talked in the beginning, a little bit randomly, also a special interest about this foreign language. He started first with the Russian alphabet, Cyrillic, so maybe he has a way of interesting also to write with other letters than the Latin letters. But do you know something more about that?
Well, I think he's really interested in symbolic letters. So he started with Chinese because it's all about symbol writing. And Japanese added some additional alphabets to that. So you have kanji in Japanese, which are those symbol images. You have katakana and hiragana, which are more like vocals or syllables. But Thomas is really fascinated about the development of images towards a sign or symbol. So if you listen to him when he's talking about one of his works, it's just fascinating to see how he goes into it and says, just have a look here, this is a sign for a woman which is somehow badly treated by her man, and this and this and this, and in the end of the day, the meaning of the word is something which is still connected to the topic, but yeah, there's a big gap between the origin and the final result. And that's also something which really fascinates him.
Yes, and we both actually also have a kind of gap, because you can't read it, I can't read it, and we try also to speak about this form of cultural translation, cultural transmission, and we hope that we give a short impression about the misunderstandings, the problematic, but at the end, I hope always that the connection is not a disconnected thing, we always find a way to connect the things. So.
And I would just like to add, what we will have in the exhibition is not this work, or not a work from the series about the basic course of Japanese language, but it's some works in which German texts were translated to Japanese and then done as calligraphy. So it's literature and it's historic, which means that other aspects come into it as well. And I hope that you will be quite curious to see those works, which I find fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this cultural translation, we go now geographically completely in the other direction to the other artist we would probably have now in a Skype interview, I would say.
Exactly.
We will go to
Ricardo Coello Gilbert from Guayaquil in Ecuador.
So let's try to make the connection
Exactly.
to Ricardo. So I have to put this. Okay. Let's go. Okay. Yeah. Hi, Ricardo.
Hello to the other end of the world, so to say.
Hey, dude. Nice to see you.
It's great to see you again also after, well, sometimes of not meeting even in the web. Now it's great to see you. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, we the topic of this part of disCONNECTED about transcultural translation.
Exactly.
Yes. And so it would be nice to talk with you about art. And as I don't know, so my question for you are a bit stupid, but anyway, but what I know, you are dealing with language, with written language. Maybe you can start from that, why you use this and in which way you use this and what's your issues. Yes.
Yes, I am making my work from text, and the specific work that I'm going to be showing on this, they're going to be anagrams taken from biblical texts. So what I do is that I take the biblical quotations and I rearrange each and every word, and I use each and every dot and comma, and I make it a new sense. I make a new. It's actually called in English. It's called gram, because what I do is I take the biblical quotations that are homophobic or misogynistic and in general violent in general. And what I do is that I create a new phrase that has the opposite meaning of from its original. So I base, as I'm basing my work on biblical texts, I, 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 I need to tell which text, which translation, which version of the Bible I am quoting from to the anagram, and because it's part of the play with the words, that this is supposed to the word of God, so it should be immutable from version to version. And what I'm doing is playing like in human scale and giving this new human meaning to this supposedly wise and hierarchical morals.
So I think there's a question. How can I say? Well, you live in South America and you deal with Christian. I suppose that there's a cultural also in connection with South America, which makes that relevant for you.
Yes, from colonial times, we were South America. America was invaded with the sponsorship of the church, and actually there was this document called required in English would be the requirement. That it was this consideration that colonists would have to proclaim. This proclamation of belonging to the kings by the power invested on them by the Pope, by the power invested on him. So this requirement, this requirement gave them two options: either to change their faith into Christianity, or to be enslaved, and in any way as the church would see fit. So what this meant and what this produced is that the Catholic or Christianity is an all-pervasive belief throughout at least Latin America.
But in a way, the Christian church, when they have these missionaries, they always come with the idea of peacefulness in a way. And I find very interesting that you are going to words and looking for some violence into these words and to transform it. And when I connected now, or maybe to this, conquistadore, what's for you the link, and what's maybe for nowadays the meaning? What's the changing for you then?
Yes, this is very important because I am going to present two pieces. One is the name of the piece is the biblical quotation. So one piece is called Leviticus 20:13, and you would think that this is obscure biblical knowledge, but this is actually being quoted today in order to not allow gay people, LGBT people in this community to as equal part of society. So maybe it sounds weird viewing this from there, but in here this is the reality. This the supposed saying that marriage doesn't matter what the law says. Marriage is between a man and a woman, and equal marriage was passed 2 years ago, but it's for them it's just it's not real marriage, So this discrimination, this Bible-based discrimination, is still a reality in here.
So you see your position as you have been doing works on misogyny as well, and about discrimination of foreigners. You see yourself as a civilian defending the rights of minorities, or how would you define yourself in that context?
Yes, I think that I have come to this conclusion that and that should be common sense, but it sounds so revolutionary that every person in a society should have the same and equal liberties and rights. So just saying this sounds that it should be so common sense, but this isn't what the case. And so, as long as this is not the case, this society, whichever society it is corrupt, and it is unjust, and it's just immoral. So I think I am speaking from my experience. I cannot claim to have the experience of other person. But what I'm doing is I'm listening to others, and I'm learning, and I'm sharing the conclusions that I've reached.
Maybe you can also tell us about or how we can imagine how the reaction is in your home country, in your home city, when you make exhibitions. So when the church is still a strong position in the society, not only as an institution, I think there's a lot of believers, and when you come with this topic, I know it from a friend in Colombia, it's really tough, and they really do prides, and they're really living in fear that they can be killed just to live as queer, LGBTQ, whatever they want. So, and how, when you as an artist present this, give this topic an audience, how is the reaction by the people?
Perhaps it's easier for me because I'm not a part of this community that it's actually risking their lives daily. So maybe it's easier for me. And there is some minor backlash, but it's not that much for me. And I think I try to let's say to shield myself on my work behind logic. So when this is something that it's not compatible with the doctrinal thinking. So when they reach when they are confronted with this with logic, they think this people usually say that yes, things should change. I have talked about the institutionalized raping of children by by church by churches, and yeah, it's things that you if you put a bit of thought in it, you cannot allow. So yeah, I think I'm sharing my voice and hopefully making people reflect a bit.
So could we, maybe because we listed you in the transcultural translation, so to say, maybe in your case it's the transformation from a religious cultural background to a, I don't know, cultural worldview, maybe? Is that a process of transferring from one philosophical area to another one?
Yes, maybe I think it would older days it would be religion not there anymore. So the transition should be from this faith-based and superstition-based view of the world to maybe evidence-based and humanistic-based and maybe evidence-based morality in which we know or we try to discover how reality works and how our actions affect this reality. And we base our morality in how we affect and the consequences of our actions.
But well, at least also faith, or not faith, but religion as an institution is also a question of power. And this is so maybe believers, they can believe in different things, but when it has an effect to the freedom of someone else, then it is for me actually the problematic stuff. I think it's not only because from a religious state to a non-religious state, it's more about the question which people are worth to accept it and which are maybe at the border, which are marginalized and things like that. So, and I mean, there is a transformation, and we know here also you can go to the church as a gay couple and get married, even with problematic, and it's sure not easy, and not any religion.
It's not so easy, yeah.
I know that, but I mean, there is a transformation also in that field. So this is, but actually it's almost also a question about power and who says what is normal.
Yes, we're always one political candidate away from losing everything that we've gained. So that this is also
Well, I would like to know, how is the step from the text to the installation? How do you access the development of an artistic installation using those quotations? And yeah, do you see the text material as pure material? When you deconstructed the words, is it just pure material, or does it still have that background of lost meaning, so to say, for you?
I don't think if I'm understanding, maybe if the way in which the installation or the piece, the materials of the piece are conceived, are you asking me if they have a link to the quotation that it's based on? So yeah, it's definitely, yeah, the materiality of the piece responds to where this has come from and what the piece is talking about. So it's kind of complementing them. It's not just because otherwise it would be perhaps a typographical or three-dimensional piece. And I try to make it so that it have like it has strata of meaning behind the materials and the meaning of the words, the translations. So I'm not going to go deeper into what expect to see on the show, but yeah, there's definitely some link between those.
But maybe let's go deeper into this cube. I tried to fold it, and it was not so easy, I must admit. So it's not the most wonderful cube that you could fold. Yeah, yours is much better, exactly. Mine is just opening up at the corners. But
yes.
Maybe before, we should add that we ask all the artists that they can send us a kind of artwork.
Exactly.
In a way, it's possible for Corona time. So thank you a lot for this cube. And and give us an explanation. And we try. Jude can tell us what we can show also to the camera, that we give the people which are watching us an idea of the cube.
Or you can also show it.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. This is the maybe the 100 cube that I made. So this is why it's a bit different.
Okay.
So yeah, in this cube, I thought it would be a good idea to send you something that you could have and we could both have as an object. And this is something that occurred to me, that a PDF could transform into a little sculpture. So yes, it's thinking about this new normality. In a way, you could have this element. So what I'm doing in here, it's a cube is reminiscing of. So the dice, this dice itself, it's like a pun, like a play on words. So it's like meaningless. I thought of this as meaningless and meaningful. And what I was doing in this was playing with some words that have some link, words that have some etymology maybe, or that words that follow come out of the Bible or the religious spirit. And so I have some words. I'm going to show you this. This one is
maybe not so close.
This is not focusing, maybe because of that I have the foreground, the background.
Put it more closer to you. Stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. There. So it's here it says marriage. So this has to do with what I was talking to you before, and people with the religious background. So it's most people here. They have this way of thinking about marriage that excludes others that are not men and women. So I've taken some types of marriage that are also on the Bible, so to show them that there's kind of a variety of marriages. So it's a union between a man and a woman who had to prove her virginity or be stoned to death. A man and women. A man, a woman, and her slaves. A man and his brother's widow. A rapist and his victim. A soldier and his prisoner of war. A male slave. So this is to show the obviously outdated frame of thinking that this book that they are quoting their definition of marriage has. So there's this other one, there's this arrow pointing down, and there's this other one that says so alma. Here it says the author of Matthew's Gospel, based on a prophecy made by Isaiah, mistranslated the Hebrew word alma, meaning young woman, to the Greek word parthenos, or parthenos, meaning virgin. So this has some problematics that are, I think, that are still misguiding the way that we see sexuality, especially women's sexuality. So the idea of this higher I'm missing the word here. But
value,
the idea,
you mean the value of the state of virginity?
Yes, the higher value, but as a virtue that a woman possesses in her virginity. So the idea that the Mother of God has this as one of the main characteristics that you can show from her or talk about her. You know, she's the Virgin Mary, and we never talk about the Virgin Joseph, and this is something that we have been talking about for 2,000 years, and maybe we haven't noticed it because it's so ingrained in our culture. So there's to the right, there's another word that's Matias. That this is a word that is this is a word that I don't know if you have it on German. Yeah. English, I know that there's no word for this in English. There is French maybe. So it comes from the Greek kataion. That means according to Matthew. And the meaning is language obscured by the impropriety of phrasing or the confusion of ideas. Confusion, disorder, mess. So the actual background of this word is the confusion that confusing statements that are written on Matthew's Gospel, with which the New Testament begins. So there's this account where the supposed Messiah was to be born, or had to descend from the King David and from Abraham. And Matthew, the writer of Matthew, shows this. So he starts the New Testament saying how Jesus, via Joseph, descends from Abraham. And immediately after this account, he tells us the story of the virgin birth. And these are two mutual incompatible. So this word it's actually the identification from our language. This doesn't make sense. I find it very interesting. Okay. So there we have scapegoats. So this is there it is. I think you can, yeah. So okay, scapegoat is the ritualistic mass cleansing of wrongdoings in which a goat laden with the sins of the townspeople was left to die in the wilderness of other animals. So this is the idea that every responsibility that people had disappeared magically by this ritual. So I find this to be completely opposite to any moral and worth following. So you could do whatever you want, but we're going to sacrifice something, some animal, and we're going to meet in heaven.
Indeed,
so
we have that as well as in the term of Sündenbock, which is a male goat which is loaded with the sins of the people. Mm.
Yeah. So this is particularly worrying, because this is actually the base of Christianity. The idea of the sacrifice, a human sacrifice, that would cleanse the sins of everyone. So everyone is free to do whatever. And then we have some other thing that I find this to be incompatible. It's a common word, immortal. So not mortal, not liable or subject to death, that will not decay, everlasting, perpetual, constant, a person of long-lasting fame. So the idea of the ritualistic cleansing via human sacrifice makes no sense when there is no death. So I am making the play on with these both incompatible accounts as well.
So playing with the object also means to confront yourself with incompatibilities. Yes. In the same moment. Okay, yeah. Mm.
And the last one, it's about the afterlife, and this also a kind of common word in fiction. It's undead, and it's no longer alive but animated by a supernatural force, a vampire or a zombie, technically dead but reanimated. And there is the three accounts in three different gospels. There is this promise made by Jesus that the afterlife or the kingdom of God will come so quick that there will be still some people there listening to him, living. So from these three gospels was born this figure, this apocryphal figure that's called the one you, and it's this person that was listening to Jesus, that's roaming the deserts and cannot die until Jesus comes back. So in this cube, I am trying to put the basis and the basic foundations of Christianity, the virgin birth, the crucifixion, and the resurrection. I'm trying to put them at conflict.
Wow, that's really impressive. And by the way, to just drop a quite ironic point, inside there's only air, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, it's completely hollow.
Yeah.
Hollow.
Exactly, exactly. Wow, Ricardo, that was really a big load of information. And,
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm
no,
sorry.
no. That's great. That's fantastic. So thank you so much for
Thank
this,
you.
and we are really looking forward to continue the discussion with you when you're here, hopefully in October.
Yes.
And some last thing I would add, I read it on your website, and this gives me really a very charming, nice smile in my face. There's just one sentence: I can be wrong. And just also when you are talking about all your analysis, or when you go into the language, it doesn't mean that you are the master of the truth now. And this I also really like it.
Yes, it's like a maxim.
Doubt is so in a way included, and I think this is always a good idea to have the doubt on one side of your shoulders.
And that I think it's not compatible with a doctrinal way of thinking.
Mm.
Yes. So, like Tilt said, now I'm more excited to have you here, and I hope we can have it, and Corona will not
Yeah,
stop it.
Yes.
Hopefully in
we,
October.
we will manage somehow.
Okay.
We'll
Thanks
see.
for the talk.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for the call.
Yes.
okay.
All
Be
the best
safe.
to you. See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank
Ciao.
you. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye. So, Ricardo, thank you so much for the interview. It was just great to see you on the screen and hopefully see you soon for the opening of the exhibition.
Yeah, thanks a lot. See you soon. Yes, Till. I think we don't lost completely in cultural translation, I hope, today.
No, I think we managed.
I mean, there's always a rest risk, I would say. So,
Of course, of course.
what would be the next topic in 3 weeks?
Well, the next topic will be memory and its mediation, about images crossing cultures and becoming something different. And we will have this time some works of mine to be discussed without being present, or we have to discuss that.
I do my best.
And we will have Farooq Adnan from Pakistan as a guest with either something he sent us or with a Skype chat. And, well, indeed, other artists also go into that topic which are in our exhibition. So, for example, Davide Giovanzana, whom we presented last time, would be also part of the topic. He will not be with us again. But Aman Mojadidi from France, for example, will also really fit into this focus. And so just be curious about whom we will bring to you next time.
Yes.
Enjoy your next 3 weeks. We will be back on 15th of July.
And
See you then.
and stay healthy.
Exactly.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.